Luis Gramajo, Hans Schrei, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us over. We're glad to talk to you and your audience.
Luis announced you have a transition. You were working on a very cool cookie company named Wunderkeks that transitioned into the Sunday afternoon project. So we're going to talk about both. But let's start with the early days. How did you come up with the idea of Wunderkeks? And how did you go from the idea to the first cookie? Let's talk about those first.
Well, Wunderkeks started about 10, 11 years ago back in Guatemala, where we're both from. It honestly was just killing time. It started like it was very much a part of my childhood to bake cookies. And when you grow up, you kind of stop, like those traditions, baking cookies for the holidays, you kind of lose them because all of a sudden my siblings and I had jobs, were to college, we had better things to do, I guess, than making cookies with our mom, like, teenagers. So one year I had the whole month of December off. I had a corporate job. And I was like, I miss this. I want to do it. I always enjoyed it. So I set up and I was going to do 24 types of cookies for each day of the Advent. And I did. And then I ended up with 1,000 cookies that I needed to figure out what to do. So I used them as Christmas presents and they gave them away. And at that point, there was not much in the way of competition for that type of product, like the nostalgic product. This was 2010, something like that. So someone said, you should sell them. I'm like, well, sure, I should. And it became more of a traditional bakery. And then a couple of years later, I met Luis. And Luis joined the team, kind of like because I was really not holding it together. It was very hard to handle. As a solopreneur, it was super hard to handle it. And eventually, a couple of years after that, we decided to get married. And
And you're in Guatemala or you're in Austin at this point?
No, we're in Austin.
You're in Austin.
We were in
We were in
Guatemala.
Austin.
At that
then.
point, we were in Guatemala. We got engaged, and gay marriage is not legal in Guatemala. So we figured, okay. At first, we were just okay. We'll just do a living will and a trust and all of those things that you do, kind of like to patch it up together. But we had a couple interesting experiences that made us realize that it was important for us to actually have the proper rights and the proper recognition of our family. So 6 months later, we were in the US on an entrepreneur visa, and we started doing farmers markets. At that point, we were not really thinking of ourselves. We had ambitions, but it was not, okay, we need to be this $1 million company. It was, we need to make a living because we need to establish ourselves in a new place. So we sold the business back home, and we basically started there again here with a different twist because it was completely different. So we focused only on the cookies, and the cookies were always the winner. So we did well the first year. We were doing farmers markets and we lived off that. It was a nice transition moving into the US. It was great. And then the pandemic came and we had 25,000 cookies ready to bake for South by Southwest of that year.
Wow.
And then it got canceled and we were stuck with 25,000 cookies and we're like, what are we going to do? At that point, we didn't even know what Shopify was. We didn't have a UPS account. We didn't have a website. We had a Squarespace website, that most basic thing with contact information, like a landing page, if that. But we had the cookies and we really were in a very tight position. So someone said, hey, I would love to send this to my parents. Why don't you put them online and I will order some? I'm like, okay, sure. We didn't expect much of it. We put them online and we started this campaign, which was hashtag the screw emoji because we're screwed, on a big background, very much on brand for what we've been doing. And well, we'll figure it out. We have something like 50 orders. Okay, it's fine. We'll do that tomorrow. It's gonna be Monday, so it'll be fine. We wake up on Sunday and we had 700 orders on our website. On our Squarespace website, this was not sophisticated. We didn't know what an email list was or how to operate it. And we had 700 orders because it turned out that Dessa Phillips, she's an actress, and had like 3 million followers on Twitter. She found our campaign, retweeted it, ordered like $500 worth of cookies, and tagged all of her famous friends. And next thing we know, we were like, it didn't stop. It kept coming. And we got rid of the 25,000 cookies in the space of maybe a week and a half.
Incredible.
And then some. We got a call from the Vanity Fair. We got a call from the Wall Street Journal. We got on TV. And by the end of that year, this was March, right?
Correct.
By the end of that year, we were a full e-commerce business, and we did I think $1.7 million in sales.
Wow.
We had to learn. We relaunched in April. No, we relaunched in April 15, right?
Yes.
So, and this was like maybe we gave us like 3 weeks to put up together a website, to find an agency who could help us put together ads, and to decide if this was going to work. And we went from nothing to I think $150,000 in that May. And the problem, it was great, like wonderful, a blessing, but we were not prepared. We didn't know how to ship things. We didn't know how to. We weren't prepared to procure stuff at a time where.
Not even how to make the product.
No, that
Because
was done.
Originally,
That we could.
originally it was only the two of us, but then we needed to start looking for employees and equipment,
Yeah.
and because it was not just doing cookies for the farmers market, it was doing cookies that were getting shipped nationwide. So that was a big
Yeah.
change also.
So we had to learn all of these things from
just
one day to the
one
other.
second? I'm curious about the farmers market before we move on from that, because I always feel like when somebody's coming up with a new concept, that's a food concept. I've been talking to entrepreneurs where they kind of mention farmers market is a good place to test it.
Yeah.
Well, in your case, it might be a little bit different because it sounds like the formulations were already there with the bakery before, so you knew that it was a good cookie already, or did you invent a new cookie that you didn't know how it was going to be received?
Yes and no.
And I will tell you why. Yes, we had I swear that it's the best chocolate chip cookie ever, and that's how we used to brand it. But what was interesting is that we were coming from having a full bakery where we had pies, cakes.
We'll make a wedding cake.
Yeah, everything. So I remember the first two farmers markets that we did, we brought banana bread, brownies, cookies, pies, and everybody got confused because it was like the first time that they saw us, and it was like, okay, how do they have all these products? So people, they don't trust you that much. And we realized that asking, and that's the beauty of the farmers market, that you need to be very strategic because you have the customer there, so you need to talk to them. It's perfect for market research. And we found out that here in America, it's better to focus on one thing, on one product, and do it the best way you can.
Yeah.
And we knew that our cookies were very very well accepted, and so we took some steps back and we started doing the only cookies. But here, the other thing that is different than in Guatemala is that here people, they need variety. So we had like maybe like 2 or 3 different types, but then we had to start developing new flavors. One of those was snickerdoodles. That for us, we didn't even know what snickerdoodles was because we don't have that in Guatemala.
Sure.
And after the 5th person that asked for a snickerdoodle, we had to Google it and was like, oh my god, it's a sugar cookie with cinnamon. So that one wasn't one of the flavors that we had to do. But
They became a
yeah.
bestseller. But
Yeah.
you're always refining that. The good thing about the farmer's market is that the lady who bought cookies from you this week is going to come back next week either to tell you that they were horrible or that they were great, because a lot of people
Yeah.
just come back. So you don't get that in a supermarket setting.
Yeah.
So here is like your weekly regulars. They give you ideas. They tell you what they're seeing, and so you're always refining. If it's not necessarily the formulation, you will refine the packaging. You refine the way you communicate about things. Even your speech about, hey, we have this type of cookies, and what is important here, that they are organic, that they are all natural, that they are handmade, like are you using the right words. But you can switch it from week to week because you just have your little chalkboard thing, and you switch it up and you see what works and what doesn't. So it's similar to like when you're starting, it's similar to a website, I guess, that you can change it and switch it and do a lot of A/B testing, but it's not as fast and it's not as clear because you get a lot of cues from people by seeing them
Sure.
in front of you once and again and again. So we did this for a little bit over a year.
Yeah.
And it was rain or shine every Saturday and Sunday doing the farmers market, and that really gives you such a clear idea of seasonality, of sizes, of prices, of everything.
It's a great tester for everything. I was gonna say that it's not only to test your products, but it's to test the pricing.
Yeah.
Our slogan, for example, we got it from there.
Promotions.
Like the best cookies ever came from there because we started noticing that when we were saying it out loud, people like they turned around and they were like, "Really? Are they? Those are
You
the
were
best cookies
testing
ever?"
website copy, basically.
Yeah, but yeah. So if you start seeing, you can test packaging. You can test logos, everything.
One of the most interesting things that we found was that our brand was always pink and we had a bubble machine. And what Raymond said was very childish, but it was with a, it was very macho, so it was very
Queer and childish.
queer and
Like inner child, like
picking up
playing with
with
your
inner
inner
child.
child.
So it was toys, it was colors. That we had a dinosaur with a tutu, we had a disco ball, those type of things. We had a disco ball back when before disco balls were everywhere. And what we found about the product itself is not this dainty cookie. So there was this juxtaposition between a tough, big, chunky cookie and the cute little store. And what we found out of that was that most of our customers were men,
Yeah.
not women. We expected it would be women. And what we realized was that there was the husband who was with his wife on the farmer's market, and he didn't care for the organic eggs or the organic kale or the whatever. He was just seeing what treat can I get for myself, or the woman would buy it for the husband.
Yeah.
So
That's
the
the
end
exact
customer,
thing that would happen with me. My wife wouldn't eat the cookies. I would go and get it. She would get like kale.
Yeah. Yeah.
so it was men. It was men buying our product.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that really gave us a lot of insights that then were super helpful, even in the way you photograph the product. Because once you have to translate it to a website, then it really is how do you show this that you cannot test.
Yeah.
Because a sweater is a lot easier, but when you're talking about food, you're like, oh, how do I convey these things and what do I want to convey? So even in that regard, it really, like the learnings from the farmer's market and for years of doing face-to-face customer service really did a lot for us. Like everything, but I would say that in any business, but particularly if you are remote or you're in commerce, at some point, we're at some point shipping ourselves something like 500 orders a day. It
Wow.
was insane. And we learn all of that. And the thing is that not learning how that works will allow you then to go to your 3PL and tell them exactly what you want, and they cannot like lie to your face, or they cannot think that you're like treat you as you are stupid, because you know exactly what goes into these things. So all of those things were very relevant. So we're kind of, when we had to close, we're in the process of actually moving away
Yeah.
from doing everything in-house because it was just impossible. But that knowledge is incredibly valuable, because I know a lot of founders who they barely see their product, they never touch it, and it is so important and really does a lot. Not because I have this emotional connection with my product, but because you can kind of replicate the emotional connection that you expect your customers to have. So for us, for instance, packaging was everything, and we spent so much on making the packaging the best it could possibly be, like a whole experience. Because what I want is for this person to get so excited that she wants to share it on Instagram, and that's what we did. And
The other thing that is very helpful is that you need to also realize, and it did happen to us in the beginning, that we were like in the air, like everything was going well, like we were in the clouds, and at the end we were like, we're just selling cookies. I mean, we're not selling spaceships. You need to make peace with it, that the product that you're selling is a simple product. So what we did is that we developed all the branding and it was an experience.
Yeah.
It wasn't about the product, it was what the product represented, and that's when it started clicking with everybody.
And the secret that no one tells you, particularly regarding all that part, is that a lot of what you get shipped and what you get charged for shipping is air.
Yeah.
And the 3PL is not interested in you having efficient packaging at all.
But that's a key.
Or efficient packing materials. But
Yeah.
we were like, how do I make this as efficient as possible and as cheap as possible? So we had to design thinking of efficiency for our own sakes, because we had limited resources to this process. So for scaling, it was, okay, great. So now we have this very clear idea of what we need. We have this very clear idea of what it costs. And we have a very clear idea of what works and what doesn't, because we had literally had to pack ourselves 150,000 boxes. At some point, it was horrible. So that gave us a lot of clarity, and more important, because it's very easy, I think, to what he said, to fall in love with your product and think that you're amazing and that you are the master of the universe. Like our cookies, we ended up like Dan Reynolds from Imagine Dragons ordered cookies, and that led to a collaboration with the organization for Pride Month. We ended up having our cookies in the
Gift bags
at the Oscars. Like we had, and that led to Hoda and Jenna eating brownies live on camera. We had, we went to Tori Spelling's house to bake cookies. We met Richard Branson. It was all of these things because no one cared about the cookies. They cared very much about the ritual of eating them, the togetherness, and like the sharing them. They were big by design, so the whole point is for you to share them with your inner child, supposedly, which it was someone else. So
Yeah, we realized from the very early beginnings that the power of your story also,
So-
because during South by that's what
That's what- like what saved us.
that's what saved us, that we were vulnerable and saying, okay, we came to this country and our visa depends on the business, so to survive and not to go back, we need to sell these cookies, and people react to that. People they're not looking for the product, they're looking for founder, like the story of the founder. So that we learned it really fast, that everything that we were doing, celebrities contacting us or opportunities that we had to collaborate with someone, every single time that someone reached out to us, it was because they were very impressed with our story and how we were talking about it all the time.
yeah, and if people who say that that is not like an important thing, maybe not so much when you are at the supermarket level and what you're fighting for is efficiency and faces on Target and Walmart. Sure, by the time you're there, of course. But in the meantime,
Yeah.
like that first step is all about that. Then you have to worry about other things. But at first,
And the big fishes are gonna focus on that.
Yeah, because-
at the end of the day, they want to buy, like
And they
Coca-Cola, Kellogg's, all of them. They want to buy a brand that has a story.
Yeah, they have
because
a-
they cannot make it.
they have their pick. Like the reality is that, and I think that's people. We all think that our product is wonderful and perfect, and everyone should be having it. But the reality is that our product is probably just as good as the one from the guy next door, and you need to make peace with that. Like this is not particularly if you are in a consumer market. CPG, electronics, no, like maybe electronics, but CPG, clothing, apparel, sorry, all of those things. You have a lot of competition,
Yeah.
and your product is who makes the better connection, who wins. So that really helped us. That really opened a ton of doors for us. But more importantly, that also we were kind of like so into the business that we had this tunnel vision. And then the business collapsed. To make it short for you, we had an investor. It was a bad deal. They were not okay with the direction that we were taking with the brand, and we were honestly overwhelmed, and we got played. So at some point they tried to take control of the brand, and we said no. All hell broke loose, and at some point our lawyer said, we're gonna win this, because we got a lawsuit on our hands. We're gonna win this, but it's gonna take another year and another $100,000 in legal fees, and honestly, you cannot afford me. He was saying that in the best, nicest way possible. He's a very nice guy.
He was being realistic also.
But he was also being realistic. So we made a choice and we closed it. And it was very hard. It was very hard because we had put so much of who we were and so much of what we felt that we had been given when we moved to the US into what became Wunderkeks. Even the boxes used to say the foods we share with the world tell the stories of who we are, and by openly and fearlessly share our stories, we create space for others to share theirs. The point being that the rituals, it was longer than that, but the point being that the rituals that we create around sharing food are the spaces where we get to say I love you, where we do have the hard conversations. But when you are already in the horse, you get tunnel vision. And you're thinking that what you have on your hands is a cookie business, and a cookie business, and a cookie business, and a cookie business, and everything is cookies, and you forget that that is not what you want. And that led us to realize, like, oh, it's not the foods that we share with the world. It is the things that we share with the world, whatever those things are. So what we started like digging into is like, what is it that you want to achieve? What we wanted, what was important for us was that for many complicated reasons, we've done a lot of research on this, but basically, the gist of it is this, with the Sunday Afternoon Project. A lot of what holds us back from being who we can be is a lack of role models, in the sense that we don't talk about failure. We talk about how wonderful everything is once it is, and we hide our faces in shame when we have failure. And that cannot be. So the point is, let's have the difficult conversation. So it was, there's many, many ways of doing that, and that is what's important. The cookies were one way, and with hindsight, not the best way. So what we started we took everything from that brand in the ethos of the inner child, this idea of creativity, of curiosity, of authenticity, of difficult conversations, And we started developing into what became the Sunday Afternoon Project, which is exactly that. How do we make sure that we communicate, that we see ourselves, that we communicate who we are, and that we communicate in a way that we become role models for the people who are a step behind us. And the insight, the most interesting insight of this is, if you are born in the US in the lowest quintile of income, chances for that you have a 70% chance of never leaving it. Not because of a lack of opportunity, because America is nothing if not opportunity, but because we are lacking this quality that is called self-efficacy, which is, in a nutshell, this seeing opportunities and matching them with your own skills. So when you have people who are stuck in what you would call a dead-end job, where they are like just doing the bare minimum, we all have had this experience as entrepreneurs, where like this guy who just doesn't care. They don't care because the culture has told them that, why would they? This is your lot in life, and you're gonna be paid exactly the same if you do a crappy job. You just have to be a warm body in like here, and that's all that's required of you, and that is all you are and all you can aspire to be. So the first step in order for them to go and overcome that is to realize that opportunities are there. But we do a terrible job when we overcome those. We do a terrible job of looking back and see who was a step behind us, because what we want is to come across as successful. So once we are successful, we will give ourselves this coat of polish of how amazing I was and how easy it was for me, and obviously it was destined for greatness. So we never share, oh no, this was a struggle. This was very difficult. Mm-hmm. So with that, the Sunday Afternoon Project became about how do we actually tell the story, and we get better at telling the stories. Mm-hmm. So what we do is
coaching sessions.
It's coaching, but the event is this. When we started, when we closed the business, we had a speaking engagement set up for, I think, 2 weeks after that, and we were like, what are we going to do? Because I would have cried my eyes out if I had to just go and tell what happened, and I didn't feel like we didn't think that we could just go and like ignore it. It was not fair to the people who were supposed to be listening to us and getting advice or knowledge from us. So we found a way, and we wrote a fairy tale. And the fairy tale was, it's like a minute. Let me read it to you. Once upon a time in Guatemala, one of the most colorful parts of the developing world, two daring souls, Luis and Hans, embarked on a quest to find their safe space, a realm where their love could flourish and they could truly become a family. Guided by their 4 faithful Canaan companions, they set out for a distant land known as Austin, Texas. There, they discovered a magical safe space beyond their wildest dreams. United in love, they fearlessly embraced their true selves, forming a company that illuminated the world with their enchanting cookies and the tales that they told through them. Yet, lurking in the shadows, a wicked sorcerer gazed upon their magic with envy. He cast a malevolent curse upon their company, sneering that they were too gay and demanding they surrender their vibrant spirit, mute their voices and forsake their true identities and their cherished story, or else see their beloved company suffocate to death. In the battle for being faithful to their own identity, the company vanished before their eyes. But the wicked sorcerer had not foreseen the power that lay not with the cookies, but within the story that they carry in their hearts. From the ashes of loss, a radiant phoenix arose. The Sunday Afternoon Project. Hans and Luis embarked on a new mission, to build a world where every soul could find a safe space to shine and share their story, as they did. A world of safe spaces, a world of belonging. And they did not live happily ever after, for that is what got them into this mess in the first place. But they understood that such endings were fragile and could never be taken for granted. Instead, they lived in constant vigilance, wearing the crown of their own story proudly and cherishing every moment of the battle they fought together. The end.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So you're immigrant entrepreneurs. I'm an immigrant entrepreneur myself. So we talked about America being the land of opportunities. You know, I can imagine the things that I do here, I could never do back at home, you know, where I'm from. I'm Turkish originally, so this is a country of immigrants, country of entrepreneurs, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about this fairy tale. Let's talk about your story sharing method. Let's kind of try to make these experiences a little bit practical for our listeners. So let's say somebody wants to start their own brand, they're an immigrant, and just as you said, you know, maybe they're making something like cookies or something else, but, you know, it's good, but other people's stuff is also good. So now, how can they stand out using their story? So like, what would the first thought for them to be like, to kind of just like the fairy tale you described to us? How can they create their own fairy tale? What do you have a high level
Yeah.
advice that you could give?
Yeah. What we do is we interview them for about an hour. So the idea is you need to convey a clear message, and a lot of the time we fail ourselves in how to do it. So we contradict ourselves, or we diminish ourselves, or we are not clear, or we try to go in 10 different directions at once. So we interview them, and the interview is very free-flowing, is what is important to them, what they want to talk, what they want to share. And then we take it's about an hour. Then we take the transcript of that interview and we feed it to a very layered AI model. So the fairy tale comes out of that. And along with that, not only you get the fairy tale, but you also get an analysis of what it is. Because you want to make sure, like the idea is, it is very hard to criticize yourself. You know how sometimes you give advice to someone else, but not to you because you have some distance. So the idea of the fairy tale is that when you read it, you get some distance and you say, oh, okay, so this is me, so I am failing here, I am succeeding here. And the idea is that by creating that, you can see the common threads, but as an abstraction, because so they are at arm's length, so there's an abstraction. So then we can analyze, not criticizing you, but criticizing the character in the fairy tale, and saying, oh, okay, how good are you at speaking about yourself? Are you clear about what is important to you? How do you present yourself? Because we use a lot of the basis is The Hero of the Thousand Faces by Campbell. There's the whole idea of the hero's journey. And the point is, you can be whoever you want, but you need to be consistent and clear on who you are. You cannot be the hero all the time. You cannot be the maverick all the time. You have to choose one clear proposition for who you are. Some brands, and this applies of course to brands, because what we have seen is like the founders are for the most part incredibly passionate about what they're building, and a lot of it has to do with them. But there's a chance that you may find that the thing that you want to build, say, what are you passionate about? We're usually telling, I'm passionate about being a doctor. Okay, what are you passionate about? It's not being a doctor. You're passionate about like saving people's life, for instance. So that means that there are other ways you can get away from the tunnel vision. But it's very hard if you have grown thinking of this idea day in and day out for years. It's very hard to see, oh, there are other paths that I'm not seeing. And that's very useful for brands, because a lot of the time, what we do is that we are so fixated on the idea, and please, I want to talk, I want to pick your brain, so you give me input, but we don't take it because we know better. So the point is, you see it from outside, and then you can see, okay, so you're presenting in this way. And also you need to talk about who is this for, like who are the supporting characters in the narrative that your brand is building. And what we see a lot of the time is that we talk about ourselves, like that's a very basic advice, talk about the customer, not talk about yourself. Yet we keep talking about ourselves because we haven't really spent the time thinking about who the customer is and what they represent, or even how we talk about them or to them. Because so we analyze the voices. A lot of the time, we tend to patronize our customers because they become, you know best, and they become this aggregate, right? So there are those numbers, and this is order something, not a person. And sure, we do that for sanity, but we need to see how are we talking to them, or are we talking at them? And then it's like the clarity, like then we analyze like the use of artifacts. So what is it that we're doing? Are you talking just about your product as it is, that's in the sense of benefits, or are you talking about your product as this wonderful thing that is going to change everyone's lives, but you're presenting an idea that is kind of up in the air, but is not grounded in reality? So you need to correct that. And the worst of the mall is when you contradict yourself. So for instance, we had this lady, and this was more of a person thing. She was very upset that it came out that her husband was presented by the story as an illusionist. And she was so mad. But then so here's a transcript of your thing. Here's the timestamp of all the quotes of when you talked about your husband in this way. But I didn't say that my husband was an illusionist. No, what you said was that your husband kept painting a picture of a life that you were going to have that never came true. So you kept talking about, so one of two things need to happen. You stop talking about your husband in that way, or you make peace with the fact that your husband keeps creating these ideas that they're never coming true. both of them are viable, but you need to choose one. What you cannot do is then like have this blind spot that I keep talking about this and this and this and this and that, and I am ignoring it. So
That's one of the things, and the other thing is that a lot of the times, most of the times, with brands especially, what you're trying to tell is not necessarily what people are hearing.
Yeah.
And that's the key. That those two,
It's
they,
not-
they need to be so aligned, because you need to be very clear on the messaging that you're delivering, that it's the correct one, that someone else is not interpreting something else. And that's a very common mistake.
And that is not for you, because a lot of time I think that we make the mistake of thinking that it's for us. Like, it's not for you. It is for this profile of a person that you need to have a lot of clarity on, and you need to give a voice to, and need to give, like, it's an abstraction, but it needs to have a voice and a face. And you keep talking about what you want to hear. No one cares. And that is the failure in communication. Like, I don't know if that ever happened to you, but I find nothing more off-putting from a brand, particularly an emerging brand, than when they are patronizing me. Like, they are telling me how I need to listen to them. Like, no, you want my money, you listen to me.
And you need to really learn how to tell people that why you're doing the thing that you're doing. Why are you the correct person to do it?
Yeah.
Let's say I'm adventuring with dog food, for example. Yeah, but why? Oh, because since I'm a little kid, I always had a dog, and for me, dogs are everything. Those connections are when people start trusting you way more, because they know that you are the right person to be selling that, or to offering a service, a product, or whatever it is, because you understand.
Yeah.
And that's another key point.
And
Luis, let me ask you. First, Luis, then Hans. You answer separately. So now, knowing everything you know, you've been through the experience with the investor, left a bad taste in your mouth. Now you're doing the storytelling lab. But I'm kind of wondering, if back in the back of your mind, if you're thinking, if you were to start a new journey, you know, with the lessons that you've learned, right? First of all, would you never go for a product business again? Or if you were to go for a product business, in any category, what would you want to do, Luis, and what would you want to do, Hans?
I wouldn't go in a product category anymore, because it's really tough. I wanted a change. I did it for many years, and I personally needed a change. For me, offering this coaching service is what I wanted to do. That was my passion. I love to connect with people. I'm very curious about everybody's stories, and I like to help them put it together. So that for me is basically my passion. So that's why I'm doing what we're doing right now. I'm super happy, and that's the only reason why I wouldn't go back to having a product. And the other thing that one of the things that I learned, the biggest learning that I'm taking from our experience is that, and it's gonna sound so cliche, but we all do it, but you need to plan instead of react.
Oh yeah.
And as an entrepreneur, you are always, most of the time, reacting, and that's the impulse, always. Like, the first impulse is always react. Never do that. Always plan. Because for us, we went from 0 to 100 in 30 seconds. And
paid for
from the beginning, we started reacting, and we forgot about the planning because we were too busy reacting. And yes, you need to be patient, and it's going to take more time, it's going to be slower, but at the end of the day, you're going to be so grateful that you did it, because that's basically what took us off the ground also, because we didn't do a lot of planning, we didn't have time. So you need to prioritize that.
Yeah.
Hans, same answer, or do you have a different feeling about it?
For me, I do love products. I do love brands. That is always what I wanted to do. I remember that in college, so they had me do a vision board. And I remember that I put a gigantic McDonald's logo on it because I wanted to build a brand. But at this moment, it's a rough market. But more than that, I am very excited about the possibilities of what we're doing now, which is just removing the tunnel vision and seeing all of the opportunities here, because a lot of the time we fail to see what I was saying earlier, that all of the opportunities out there to achieve what you want to achieve and we go for the obvious one, the one that is in front of us. I would have never thought of doing what we are doing. Like, if someone told me that we were doing AI storytelling analysis, I would say like, yeah, that's definitely not me. So I guess we're tech founders now, that's where we're going. And I find like this type of, the reach that this type of thing can have, and the possibility for good, because the model for us is we get the corporate version that is paid, and then we find people who don't have access to this type of training to give it to them for free so that they can overcome these limitations. I really think that the possibilities are infinite for this. Whereas like the product is something that will make people happy and it's gonna be fun, but I think I got my fix of that, and I am in a place where I am more concerned about what my legacy is as an entrepreneur. Like I'm at that age, I guess. So I'm very excited about this, and I don't think I want to go back to product because it is really tough.
It is.
It's fascinating if you get it right. It's fascinating, and it was a lot of fun for a long time. But
I would love to add that also. The reason why I like the project that we're doing, and we always say that I lead with my heart, Hans leads with his brain, and we complement each other so well. So when we are coaching someone, I help them connect to themselves, like scoping their story, like what really matters for you. And then he comes in with all the brain, and because he's so passionate about brands. The way that we see it now is that, okay, maybe we are not going to build a big brand, but we're going to be helping all these entrepreneurs to do it, and to do it in a mindful way. So we kind of get our satisfaction also, and by helping the other side. And I think that for you is very important.
We're getting the fun part.
To see a brand coming to life, and it's super cool. So I think that the mix of those two things are working really well together.
Yeah. And I'm sure some people are like excited about the logistics and about the production. But for us, it was always that. So what I was saying, like, we're getting the fulfillment without having to go into the parts that are very difficult for us.
Yeah.
Sure. Luis Gramajo, Hans Schrei, thank you for sharing your journey with me.
Thank you for having us.